and I'm glad to have Alyssa be our third power presenter today.
All right, so without further ado, we are going to record this session today. So if you want to rewatch it later or zoom through anything, you certainly can. But feel free, for those who didn't join right in the beginning, share your information in the chat. We're better together, and you may make some connections with others throughout these discussions or want to stay in touch. So please do make sure that you take that opportunity to connect with others through the chat function as we go. So we've got a packed agenda today. One of my weaknesses is I'm an over preparer. I tend to lean toward more information versus less. So you're going to get a lot of information, but we're just going to scratch the surface on the concepts today and get some time to go into breakouts. So I won't spend too much time on this. Tamia did a great job introducing me, but I'm your facilitator. My background is in HR, and I also have an executive MBA from Quantic School of Business and Technology, as well as a master's in negotiation and dispute resolution. But I love helping people grow their skills, and especially when it comes to digital transformation. There's a lot of disruption in the talent space and inside our organizations that we work for, and there's a lot that can be done to help facilitate and build the right structures so that people can thrive in those spaces. So for today's session, we're going to be really interactive. So feel free to raise your hand, use the chat, react as we go. We're also going to be using a tool called Menti. We tested it out, so if it gets awkward, we'll switch to another way. But please do, I'll give you the link to open that up so that you can use that tool and interact in real time, or we'll have some fun word clouds and things to react to. But again, just know, this is a big topic. So you're going to get some real world actions and takeaways, but there's many more resources and activities available outside of today. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to dive a little deeper for yourself or for your teams. All right. So I've given a version of this workshop in shorter form or in different forms to a variety of different audiences. And each time I learn something new. So my goal is for you to learn something new as well. My own approach with that adjusting content based on feedback and audiences really reinforces some of the skills and practices that we're going to dive into together during our time today. That's agility, experimentation, and continuous improvement. But in the end, our goal is to spark some meaningful individual micro experiments for you to grow your own careers, and also to show the leaders in the room or future leaders in the room how to scale job crafting and entrepreneurship as a talent engine that builds and retains and activates talent from the inside of organizations. So you can see there, if you want to use your phone or use another tab on your computer, you can join our Menti that we'll be using going forward. And you'll see that link and that code in a few more spaces. In fact, I'll put it in our chat too, so you've got it there. All right. So let's go ahead and dive right in. But before I get started with this Menti, I first want to ask, do we have any entrepreneurs in the room with us today? You can raise your hand, do an emoji, maybe a few. All right. Well, just know that what we're talking about today applies to everyone. So those entrepreneurial skills, right, that founders use to become great and successful are some of the same skills that are going to help you stand out inside organizations as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, let me see if I can get this Menti to start here. There we go. Nope. Oh boy, I knew there'd be a technical issue, guys. It worked earlier. So we'll just have a conversation instead. So when you think about those key founders and entrepreneurs that you've seen and heard about, what are some of the qualities that make them successful? And we can just come off chat, shout them out, throw them in the chat box to make this work. Oh, wait, it's there. You can use the Menti. So feel free to enter those on your phone or on your tab. Words that describe what makes great entrepreneurs and founders really successful. What do you think? Seeing some passion, right? We got energy, Bravery. Ooh, I like bravery. That's really good. Courageous ties to that as well. They're bold, resilient, innovative. There's influence, understanding. The EQ, that's a great one as well. There's something very human that makes them stand out. Strategic, persistent, resilient. All right, so we're seeing some words jump out here. And I think this is really important because entrepreneurship right now is really glamorized. Everyone is thinking about quitting their job and putting on the hoodie and working for themselves and this vision of what that looks like. But that may not apply to everyone, right? Not all of us will go down that journey, and not all of us need to go down that journey. The big question is, what if your current job that you're in now is the best startup incubator you haven't funded yet, the best launching point to build out your ideas? You don't have to wait to build those same skills, and they'll serve you just as well inside companies and set you apart as they would when you go to the outside. So yeah, some of those skills that you all called out, there's that growth mindset, collaboration, influence, customer focus, really true accountability. But that innovation and resilience and creativity is where we're going to lean in for a bit today. But let's first kind of talk a little bit about why I think this topic is really important. So the skill and talent horizon right now is under a lot of disruption. We're facing two major forces on a global scale: the impact of technology on skills and a lack of workers in general for a variety of reasons. So McKinsey states that 1 in 16 workers will need to change occupations by 2030. That comes out to 100 million people. And who knows, that could be a light estimate. Now, on top of that, Korn Ferry revealed that by 2030, the worldwide talent shortfall could be more than 85 million people, which is a loss of $8.5 trillion in lost annual economic value. Right? That's coming from a shortfall of people retiring or exiting the workforce and a lack of people coming in. So there's a lot of automation and things coming in, and that may be causing fear in people. But the reality is, to remain competitive, we're going to have to find out how to emphasize human skills that AI can't replace. So let's dive a little bit more into this. It's a lot of data, and I don't expect you to read it. You're going to get a copy of these slides. This is a study from the World Economic Forum. And the big call out is that as much noise as we're hearing about technology and cybersecurity and AI skills, which are real, by the way, and expected to grow by like 90+%, you'll also see that the skills employers expect to see grow over the next 5 years are similar to a lot of those skills we kind of talked about in that initial entrepreneurship word cloud: creativity, resilience, motivation, flexibility. They're some of the top ones. And employers expect 39% of workers' core skills to change by 2030. So more people will be moving up those ladders and needing to grow those skills. Here's another one, again, very busy, but I'll give you the summary. This is really talking about how that we're really focused on Gen AI, and everyone's kind of concerned about what does this mean for my job? But the reality is some of those core skills we talked about on the last slide, and when we're thinking about entrepreneurial skills, are the ones that Gen AI cannot substitute. They're core human skills rooted in interaction, empathy, active listening, and even some things related to manual dexterity that don't show substitution potential based on this report and this study. So what we're finding is that those nuanced skills are going to be a big focus area for employers who need to emphasize the need for training and upskilling. More data I'll throw at you, but the summary on this is, what are employers planning to do to fill this gap? Many of you may work in HR or run your own businesses, so you could probably answer and make some assumptions on your own end, but there is a known talent availability gap when hiring. Employers know this. It's a problem. The people just aren't there. The skills just aren't there. And they've also all reported they're planning to invest in upskilling and developing their people. So to me, what this says is individual employees have a huge opportunity in front of them to take advantage of the landscape and build new skills in unique ways that they may not have done before. So taking those skills, I kind of grouped them into families, but it's probably easier to just kind of think about which ones you would want to go pursue, but they come in certain categories. You get your digital, technical, risk, your analytical, your communication, empathy, your resilience, flexibility, and agility. And as a leader, whether formally or informally in your organization, because let me just put this out here, we're all leaders, regardless of whether or not we have direct reports, and you have a lot of control in that way. It's critical that you're able to spot and see how these different groups of skills show up in both yourself and in others. Again, there's a lot here, and you're going to get this handout. But it's really important that we're able to identify those differences between what it looks like to have a strength in a skill set and what it looks like to have an opportunity. I don't even like that word weakness. It's all about opportunities. We all have space to grow. So what does good look like, right? Or a strength look like in communication? You're tailoring your audiences with clear so what ties. What's in it for me? You're listening and paraphrasing. You're building rapport easily across teams and functions, and you're getting alignment from people along the way. Whereas an opportunity might be maybe there's too much jargon, or you're missing emotional cues, or you're surprising people with late changes. Those are just some examples that you can start to think about for yourself and others on what it looks like as you're trying to identify strengths and opportunities in key skill areas. So when you think about, let's try this again, see if it works. Oh boy, it's up. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everybody. We'll make this fun. On your Menti, we have another fun poll, and I'm very curious to see what you all think are the skill areas that are most important to grow in your workplace, considering the technical landscape, the skill landscape, and some of those shortages that are affecting our work. So go ahead and vote, pick a couple. I got it opened up where you can pick a couple to vote for, and we'll start to see those results come across the screen. Now, if you've already voted, another thing I'll ask you to do is start thinking about which of those areas of skills you personally want to work on, because it may not be the same as what you think is most important for your workplace. All right, votes are coming in. Gosh, I love how this Menti works. I gotta tell you guys, this is kind of a new tool to me, but it looks cool. All right, so it looks like we're getting some, gosh, it's pretty evenly spread here. I know they're all really important, but some focus maybe around that analytical and critical thinking, systems thinking. So important as we start to integrate all these new technologies into our world and think about what does this mean and why? How is it affecting these other processes? How does it affect downstream pieces of the business, and so on and so forth. But I'm curious, this is fun. It's curious to see. It's pretty evenly divided. And so it'll make for a really great discussion going forward. So we already kind of touched on that, but what I'd like to do is just take a minute and ask for one or two people to kind of shout out, why did you vote for what you voted for? Why did you think that that particular skill set is most important to build in your workplace? Or if you voted for it for yourself, why? Anybody want to be bold and come off mute? Gloria, go for it.
Yeah, I picked one of the lesser voted on options, and that was really around curiosity and the resilience and flexibility. And for me, I focused on that just because we live in a rapidly changing world, and what worked yesterday won't necessarily work tomorrow. And so for the kind of work that we do, it's really just staying fluid with where you need to shift to. So that's why I said that.
That's great. And I would assume that everybody who's on this call is kind of leaning toward that curiosity mindset, right? You joined for a reason because you wanted to learn something. Maybe you saw the headline and thought, I don't even know what this word is or what this means. Anybody else? Any call outs on why you picked what you picked? That's okay.
Jump in.
Oh, no, I got one. Siobhan?
Yeah. I picked analytical, critical, and systems thinking. I work in healthcare, and so it is about to probably get a huge upheaval here in the US. And so there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, and some are going to have to be really analytical and critical that are going to be difficult. But then at the same time, we also have to look at the overall systemic impact within our organization, within our metro area, and then how that's going to also affect social determinants of health and everything else. So there's a lot of systems thinking that's going to need to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fun times for you ahead to solve those challenges, right? For all of us. So we're rooting for you to do that. And I thank you so much for jumping out. I do have a question for the whole group. Do you think that these skills are adequately hired for and developed within your companies today? Would anybody raise their hand and say they are? Maybe. So there's an opportunity here, right? It goes back to that World Economic Development Survey, where it's just really interesting to see employers know they need to invest in this. We need to upskill people. There is a gap for a lot of reasons, right? It's a complex landscape, but we're going to talk about some of the many ways that we could start to build those skills as we go through our session today. But as we proceed, just in the back of your mind, start to kind of think through for yourself those big strengths and areas of opportunities where you could lean in and start to build. Okay, so your life isn't simple. It's not in a direct line in a single direction with no changes. We've all had experiences where we've leapt forward or gotten lucky or worked really hard and achieved something big, but we've also had those situations where we've fallen backward and lost some ground, or even coasted along on some unique paths and explored some things while we were on that journey. So why would we treat our careers any differently? The old career model, that ladder, is over. It's dead. Maybe you've heard this before, but if you haven't, I'm going to tell you, don't focus on that. Your career is more like a web or a lattice, right? It's something where you can move from side to side, backward, forward, diagonally to build the types of skills that you need and gain that learning that's going to help you learn and grow. So if you're worried about being stuck in a funnel, broaden your thinking. There may be a different way to fill some of those gaps and gain that breadth of knowledge and your mobility within an industry and even across industries. There's a lot of mobility across different industries as well that you can take advantage of. But I'm a big believer in the inherent power of people to overcome and adapt. We have it in us to do this, and that's why the ladder is dead. Right? We've proven over and over that this is much more complex, and there's much more intricacy and opportunity to explore than was previously thought. So organizations often overcomplicate employee development. I'll be the first one to say this. I work in HR, and maybe some of my HR friends will be offended, but they've probably seen it too, because it's not necessarily their fault. There are a lot of reasons why this gets overcomplicated. Theory doesn't always align with practice, but if you can empower individual people with the confidence and skills that they need to grow and experiment, you get that organizational success without all the top-down bureaucratic mess that limits opportunities and drives disengagement with teams. More and more companies are moving away from rigid hierarchies and static job descriptions and trying to figure out how to be more flexible and agile and skills-based when it comes to hiring. I won't say that everybody's got it figured out. This is a journey, right? And you can be part of helping to define how your organization does this going forward. So before I jump into this, who here, raise a hands, we'll test our Zoom functionality here instead of our Menti. Who here's heard of job crafting before? Anybody? I know some of my folks from Lisbon who are jumping on have, because I did a presentation for that. Gloria has. Anybody else? I know we still have a million Janiques, so if you joined late, you can go ahead and update your name. But okay, great. So some of you haven't, and that's good. that means we've got an opportunity to have a really fun conversation and exploration here today. But what job crafting is the art of reshaping your role without asking for permission, by slightly adjusting what you do, how you do it, or why it matters. It's proactive, it's creative, and it's very individualized to help you align your strengths and passions and the things you want to impact with the evolving needs of your organization and your team. So kind of think of it like designing or sculpting your job from the inside out to have more purpose, more value, and more energy. So it's kind of expanding on traditional job design. So like we talked about, those static job descriptions don't really work anymore. It gives you that opportunity to activate new behaviors and seek meaning in your work without compromising trust. Now, entrepreneurship is a very similar, but not necessarily the same concept. So think about entrepreneurship as taking that a step bigger, right? And a step beyond, as that enterprise sculpting versus just that individual career sculpting. You're looking to create value for the whole organization, building innovations that require more resources, more alignment, and more complex organizational buy-in than maybe it may take for an individual job crafting experiment. So job crafting kind of lays the foundation for those bigger innovations to happen through entrepreneurship. So we may have some people who play Minecraft, or maybe your kids or family members do, but it's all about finding resources and building something new to achieve a goal. Now, I've never played, I'm not really a gamer, so I've learned a lot from watching my kiddos, but sure, there's lava and there's zombies in the Minecraft world, but I mean, let's be honest, is that really that different from some of our daily challenges, right? You've got some zombie workers, you've got some challenges in your way, you may have some lava fields you have to jump over, but there's always something that seems to trip you up when you're trying to build that perfect world for yourself. And, all jokes and references aside, right? People who shape their tasks, relationships, and perception of work have higher innovation and engagement. And you're already doing this anyway. Deloitte did some research and found, and I would think this is low, honestly, that 63% of employees already work outside of their job descriptions. I'd be willing to guess that most of the people on this call have done something that they weren't asked to do, have gone above and beyond, have taken a risk or jumped into a new project outside of their day-to-day work. That's job crafting, right? So what we're talking about is just doing it intentionally, finding those opportunities and being really strategic about where and when you're stepping outside of those bounds. It can fall in a couple different buckets, so there's lots of opportunity here. It can just be molding new tasks, right? Playing around with your responsibilities to change the scope or the processes. It could be about relationships, finding mentors or customers or influencers that can kind of help you build your network or grow your insights. It could be the way you think, right? That cognitive or purpose-driven work, reframing how you think about the impact of your job. Like, I don't just run reports, for example, I generate key business insights for business decisions. You could be looking to increase resources, manage stress, focusing on well-being. You could be using new technologies, right? Mastering new technical skills or applying tools to find completely new and innovative work ways to elevate that human skill set and experience. And then finally, it's the skills, right? You're just really focused on building something for a reason, right? That fulfills a life need or a career need. But our motivation, right, for that self-initiated job crafting is driven by core needs, right? A need to maintain a sense of control. It doesn't feel good when we don't have control, right? When we feel like everything's just happening to us. Maintain a positive image. We want people to think well of us. I believe that everyone does things with good intentions, and you want other people to see that and see your strengths as well. You want to establish good relationships, and you want to know that your work means something, right? That it has purpose. So those are some of the behaviors that this can help us to do. But overall, in summary, job crafting is about being self-initiated, subtle, and personally motivating. And it's that feeder system or training ground for broader innovative and entrepreneurial thinking. So what this could look like. Now remember, you're starting small, right? This can be tailored to any role and any circumstance, and any change involves risk, right? But the common thread is you could be designing new processes. You could just be doing something as simple as asking to be included. Oh, I wasn't in that meeting. Could I be in the meeting? Maybe if you just ask, you could be, and it would open up whole new doors for you. It could be reprioritizing your schedule, teaching other people. We learn by teaching. It embeds things in our memory. There could be all sorts of things that you could be doing, right? Hosting a lunch and learn, jumping on and leading a workshop on something that you know something about or are really excited about. These don't have to be huge changes. Now, you may be thinking, okay, this sounds kind of fluffy. Is this just some made up HR fad or, buzzword that's going on? And the answer is no. There is actual science going back quite a ways and academic research behind this, that when individuals own small changes, they build muscles that lead to bolder, bigger, more impactful changes. And that active experimentation rewires your brain. It helps you adapt, grow skills, and change your behaviors forever. So there's neuroscience pieces activating through novel experiments and behaviors stimulates neuroplasticity, and that maintains your capacity for future growth and future changes. You get a dopamine spike when you get feedback on your progress, even if it's small, right? And that encourages you to continue, to move forward and keep doing that behavior. Then from an organizational perspective, people who do this have higher engagement and innovation, and that skill variety and autonomy benefits the organization in a variety of different ways that we'll talk about later. We also know a lot about Kaizen, Agile, Lean. I'm sure everyone on this call has heard of one, if not all of those models that reinforce short, fast feedback cycles. And then also, we know that people want to avoid loss, and they want to feel autonomy, and they really want to feel like they have ownership over ideas. Those are all really tied to behavioral economics. So my point in doing all of this, and I've got some extra resources you can dig into as well, is this is real. There's data and there's value in finding unique ways to do this for yourself, okay? There are studies that consistently link crafting to performance and well-being across a variety of settings. So I'll pause and ask you to just take a moment of self-reflection. Where do you in your job feel drained, burnt out, or bored? On the other hand, where are you naturally just leaning in or trying new things or stretching or learning something new outside of your job already? What are the things that give you energy, that you show up for? Or that at the end of the day, after a long day, you go home and you want to tell the people in your household about because they just made you light up? Any of those areas, whether they're the burnout areas, right? Whether they're the light up energy areas, are spaces where you have an opportunity to be really intentional about growing and changing your career. When organizations allow smart people, and we're all smart people here, to build things inside a company, that prevents them from needing or wanting to leave. And companies need good people, right? We know that. We already saw the data. This is how you help fill that gap and help your employer give you the opportunities that you need. But it starts with that self-awareness. If you don't have that, no one can help you, right? Make that connection and get the support and opportunities that you need. So let's spend a second. I'm going to try this Venti again. We're going to give it a whirl. What do you want more of in your job? What gives you energy? Impact. That's good. What else? Feedback. Opportunities to lead and train. Trust. purpose, success stories. You want some wins, right? Everybody wants to put some wins on the board and be part of a winning team. You want to add value, have autonomy. Great. Keep them coming. Fantastic. And don't stop there, right? This is for the sake of our discussion. And also, you may see things up there that you thought, oh, I want that too. That's part of our purpose here of sharing as a group. There's wisdom in the collective and seeing these things together. Now, let's switch over and think a little bit about the things that you want less of. Yep. Less stress, less meetings. Oh gosh, the meetings. Death by meeting, right? Unnecessary tasks, headaches. Oops, administrative burdens. Oh man, I lost it. Micromanagement. Huh. You know, it seems like some of the things we've been talking about with job crafting could maybe solve for both these things, right? The what you want more of and the what you want less of. It'll take time, right? We're talking about small changes though, but they're all great starting points. So please do take notes, write things down if something jumped out from someone else that you want to work on for yourself. But I find that sometimes a visual helps. So consider a scenario where you have a light source and you're holding either a prism or a lens, right? Like even like an eyeglass lens. When that light passes through that lens, it will focus and narrow. When it passes through the prism, it's going to reveal a spectrum of new colors that you hadn't seen before. And it's going to shoot beams in a variety of directions that it wasn't coming from originally. So think of the opportunities and resources within your role and within your company, even if it's not perfect, right? Even if there's a lot that you want less of, it's still a light source, right? That you can use and modify through yourself. You are the prism or the lens. How you mold yourself, how you turn yourself, how you adjust impacts what comes out on the other side. And even when that light is dim, you can still pass it through to create something new. You can find things in that dimness and in that darkness. So with that visual in mind, we're going to move forward into an acronym and a framework that I've designed to kind of help people put job crafting into practice successfully. So let me put in the chat here a handout for you. Actually, maybe Tommy can help me here. Oh, no, maybe I can't. Tommy, can you add the handout in the chat for me?
Yes, I'm
By
gonna
any
download it real quick.
Awesome. So there's a Word version and a PDF version. So you can use that if you're able to open it from the meeting invite, you've already got it, but we'll put it in the chat as well. We're not going to work on it quite yet, but go ahead and have it available because we're going to use it in a few minutes. So this is the Refract to Craft framework, and it's meant to just really simplify a thought process to follow to figure out how you begin on your job crafting journey, to help you unlock innovation and growth and guide you through a very intentional cycle. So first, you're going to start by reframing. It's all about your mindset. You have to see your role as that platform. You have to see it as the light source, even if it's not perfect, right? There's opportunity in it. Then you move to the E, explore. Start to think big. Get a little wild and creative. What are some of the opportunities? Where are the pain points? Think of that system, right? Where are the places where you're just curious if something else could be done, or where there's connections or crisscrossing paths? Then focus. You're going to find a lot of opportunity. Believe me, every time there's a process improvement or like a focus group or a survey, you're going to come with a list of a million things, right, that you could improve or move forward. But just choose one. Just start with one and then think about how it aligns to bigger business needs. Then the R is rallying. You're going to build buy-in, engage others, and communicate clearly. You won't be successful if you can't do that. Then you'll activate. Just take one tiny step forward. You're going to start small and then check along the way. Test, try. What worked this week? What didn't? What could I change? And then continue to loop this process forward over and over and over. When you check the box on this one small move, go back to the opportunity list or reframing again and pick another one. All along the way, you can be using digital tools to help you get there. There's a lot of opportunity in that space. So you can be thinking for yourself, and I know it's hard with a large group like this to share, but think for yourself about where maybe you might be really strong in this framework and where maybe you might need some work and support. Is it going to be in the thinking, right? The thinking bigger picture and getting really creative? Is it going to be on testing, right? And iterating your path along the way? Every one of us is going to come to this with different opportunities, but it's good to kind of reflect and know, where could I get hung up in this process before I start? Okay. So as we've been talking through this, you're probably all starting to form an idea in your mind. Or if you haven't, start now. Start forming that idea of what opportunities lie in front of you to craft your job or your team's job if you manage people. So here's an example. You want to, let's say your goal is to use digital systems to improve your role and build skills. You start to think about your role differently. It's a starting point, right? It's not the end state. Start to map out different things that are available to you alongside your team, maybe internally or externally that you haven't used yet. And then you're going to start to explore just some unique questions like, what do we pay for but we don't really use? What's becoming obsolete but we still kind of cleave to anyway and is deeply ingrained in our team? What could be streamlined? Where do we have pain points every single month or every single week with this tool? Or who could be my ally or mentor? This may be not on my team, but I have some sort of connection to or ability to reach out to. And then from that, you're going to pick one thing to work on, just a small test in one small focus area, and then continue to apply that REFRACT process. Now, just a quick pause before we work on this. We're talking about small experiments, right? If I do blank, then blank will improve. And thinking of it in really tiny ways, right? Good career experiments have a few key traits, right? They're targeted, really specific and small. They're low risk. We're not talking about something that's been ingrained in the organization for 100 years and everyone's going to fight you on. Something that you could do even without asking, potentially, or talking to your manager about. It doesn't require layers of bureaucratic approval. And it's visible. It's something that others can see and will impact them and will promote what you're doing. It's relevant to the team, right? When you're inside a business, right, it's great to grow ourselves, but we still have to figure out how is growing me in this way helping the business. Then you also have to have a clear time frame. I'm notorious for this. I don't know about all of you, but I get all sorts of fun ideas of these million things I want to do, but I don't give myself a deadline. Without a deadline and a time frame, it's harder to achieve the goal, right? You have to be clear on that. And then you also need to know, how am I going to reflect on this objectively, or as objectively as I can, right? And remove that emotion to understand if it's working or not. So behavior change, right, comes from a few different things. Behavior comes from motivation, times our ability, times a prompt and a trigger. This comes from BJ Fogg, and I'll share some information on him as well. But you have to have that internal desire. You also have to have the ability, and you have to have something that reminds you to take the action. So what we're really focused on is kind of those first two, right? The motivation, tying your motivation, the things you've already identified, with a new ability and a skill to do that. So over time, that builds into big, big changes. It may seem small and meaningless this week or this month, but when you look back over time, it's going to add up to big things. Okay, I won't spend too much time on this particular piece, but the reality is you can use AI and technology tools to help you come up with this. If you're feeling stuck or you have so many things on your plate from work and this is just, it's too much, it's stressful to even open up and think about some of these things, you can use your favorite ChatGPT or Perplexity and ask it some questions. Like, what are some experience I could try as, let's say I'm an accountant, to strengthen whatever skill it is you want to do without needing a promotion or a position change. You could even ask it, what are some of the things that I could do to impact, or where AI is potentially affecting my career path and making certain skills obsolete. You can get out ahead of those things and use AI to help. But again, don't just rely on AI. I know it's exciting, it's fun, we're all doing it. We love our ChatGPT, it's ingrained in my life too. But don't forget your human support. Your human resources inside your own personal network, your family, your business can help you significantly answer these same questions, and they can help you see yourself in a different way in terms of strengths and opportunities to build. Okay, so we're gonna wake up and we're gonna have a fun group breakout. So you've got that handout in front of you, and there's a middle section called the experiment. And what it's asking you to do is think about, what do you want to try? What's a reasonable goal that you can reach in a short time, like a few weeks or maybe a month or two? And then what's that first step? Who could I partner with? So I'd like you to just have that idea in your mind, and then we're going to break out for just like 10 minutes into groups of 4 or 5 and just talk through it. Use those resources in the room to share your idea of what you want to work on and answer those questions. And some of those folks may be able to help you answer those questions as well if you're getting stuck. So when you come back, I'm really excited to hear what some of those answers will be. Tommy, are we good with groups? Let's see, how many people do we have? 30? Yeah, let's do groups of like 4 or 5. 5?
4 or 5, okay.
Yeah. And then you and I can stay out.
Okay, 1 second.
Everybody clear on what we're going to do for a few minutes? Okay, I'm really excited. I just want you to all know, you've got an international audience here. Some of my peers from my MBA are here from other countries. We've got people from all around the US and in Omaha. So take advantage of these conversations and build off each other and make those connections.
Okay.
We're ready to go. Let's
Yep,
give them
right now.
Let's give them 10 minutes. Have fun. I get some water. Whew, it's a lot of talking. My voice got a little scratchy. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had enough time. Maybe you didn't, or maybe you're done early. It all really just depends on the room and the conversations. But before we continue on, I just wanted to give some space and see, anybody want to share some of the insights or value that they gained from the discussion they had in their breakout group? Any brave souls? Okay, Gloria, go for it.
Yeah, I got to be in a room with James, Peter, and Lakin, and there were a couple of common themes that came out. One is that brings energy is Lakin talked about letting his skills shine, being a younger leader and having to kind of struggle to overcome that, but to want to be able to shine. And that's what brings him energy. And it's working because he leads an after school program. They're sending people to kind of check out what he's doing. And then James was dealt a blow with being shorthanded and having to do extra work with the team. And his motivation, after being frustrated over, having to do more with less, was motivating the team, developing them, and what brings them energy is showing other leaders that it can be done. And for me and Peter, it was about automations. He's all about automations. That brings him energy. For me, automations bring energy because it frees us up to do other things. So that was just kind of the highlights of the 4 of us. It was fun.
Yeah, that's great. So you all learned a little bit from each other, had a chance to kind of chime in and build and support each other. Anybody else want to share?
I might have a question about job crafting. If I start this process in an organization, in a team, isn't it quite disturbing or could be disturbing to others if I stepping out of the usual track and start doing things I'm not expected to do, and I don't know. I'm just interested of the organizational impacts of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great question. And I saw your comments. We're going to talk more about the organizational piece later, but I do want to touch on that because that's a great call out. And those are legitimate concerns, I think, to have. So when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about just doing all the other things that other people aren't doing, right? The purpose of this is being very intentional about something you want to grow for your career. So for example, perhaps I want to grow my project management skills. I just haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that. My goal may be to go and meet with someone from the project management team and say, hey, like, do you have any projects I could kind of help out with that would benefit my team too? Right? Or could I just shadow you for a little bit and understand a little bit more about what you do? Right? So not necessarily about taking their work, right, but understanding their work in that space. Now, it could be that there is a gap in the organization. Maybe no one's doing a particular thing. That's a great opportunity too, right? And if it's impacting your team, it's really going to be about communicating and building that buy-in. And we are going to talk about that a little bit later because every company is different. And that's a great call out. You have to be cognizant of the culture of your organization and the leadership structures and the approval structures and things. Maybe inside your organization, it's very, very restrictive. And it's you do these things that are on your checkbox and that's it. That may require different types of conversations, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that communication piece later, but involving your manager and how managers can start to create that environment in a way that's not disruptive, right? The goal isn't to be disruptive. It's just taking those things where someone's already energetic or maybe going above and beyond, and then helping them funnel that into something that's really productive for them and for the company, right? You're building a pipeline of talent or you're creating cross-functional knowledge. But I think that's a great call out and a completely legitimate concern and something that you would have to put barriers up around and have a plan for if you're going to roll it out in your organization. So we'll get to that too. And I do want to keep going because I know we've got only a little bit of time together, but I'm actually going to skip this beyond telling a little story about myself. So mid-career, I really wanted to grow and I wanted to manage people. I wanted to get that coveted manager job. And at the company that I was at, every manager job posting said you had to have managerial experience. It's like, well, that's funny. Well, how do I get managerial experience? Right? Without, like, I was in this catch-22. I couldn't get the job to get the experience, but I couldn't get the experience to get the job. Right? And so there were creative ways that I could tackle that. What I decided to do was I was already involved in employee resource groups at this company, and they had a need for someone to chair one of their committees. So I said, oh, well, I'm already doing this. It's, something that my boss supports, and I have an opportunity to lead a group of volunteers. I'd be owning projects, owning events, putting my name out there in front of the whole company, and just learning some different skills. Now, I know leading volunteers is very different than leading direct reports, but it did help me overcome that hump, right? Because the next time I wanted to apply and interview, I could say I had managed a group of people. I had helped them organize and think clearly and assign the right skills to accomplish tasks, right? So that's just one example of how simple job crafting can be, right? Or what the opportunities could look like. It's just getting a little creative to say, I've got this problem and there's resources internally that I can use. I just need to find the way to use them to overcome the hurdle, okay? So lots of examples in the real world of how this has happened. Like Google, for instance, gave their people like 20% of their time back. And that's how they came up with like AdSense and a variety of other really successful projects or products in the past. So giving people that space to experiment and grow can have really big positive impacts. But to your point, Peter, they managed it. Like this was a program. And as a company, they were intentional about including it in their strategy. So this kind of drives into one of those key barriers, communication, right? That inability to build buy-in with the right people can be a big problem, right? And it can get in your way. And to be clear, like I said, I think many experiments can be initiated in your job with little to no formal authority. Maybe just a quick convo with your boss, but some of them do, right? And again, it depends on your culture, the structure of your org, and a lot of other factors. But we can kind of talk through how we start to build that buy-in. But that influence, that ability to influence, is your bridge to take it from concept into action and reality, right? Just make sure that your asks are tied to value and that they're really clear. So overall, right, the formula is clear and credible, right, is equal to your value, the specificity, and the alignment. And you can see this in your handout. There's kind of an exercise you could do to build your ask in the ask section, but I'll quickly touch on these as we move forward. You're going to start with kind of your why and your value. Who's your audience? What do they care about? What's your idea in terms of the outcome, not just the task? If it's solving a problem, have some examples, right, of where it's failed in the past. But you can see some examples on the screen of what good looks like versus what not as good looks like. Coming in and saying, hey, something's broken, or being accusatory, I just want to do something different, won't get you the buy-in, right? Tell the story. Remember the chaos and the stress we had to redo all this stuff last month? I just want to try this really quick change. I think it'll help us catch some risks earlier, and it can help us eliminate some of that rework. Then you're going to move into the what, and you really want to, be specific and action-oriented. Confident language, having a clear timeline, and being clear on kind of what you're asking for. You're not just saying, hey, I was kind of wondering if it'd be okay if I did this thing I've been thinking about. I don't know if it'll work, but right, you get it. Instead, here's specifically what I want to do. I want to have a 2-week pilot beginning on Monday to test this idea. I'm going to track the results, and I'm going to report it right back to you, boss. And if it works over the next quarter, I'm probably going to come back to you about maybe bringing in some other people so that we can expand it and finalize it. But for now, I really think that I have the time where I could prioritize this and test it on my own without disrupting any of our day-to-day work. Okay. And then you're going to go into the alignment phase. Who and how? How are we going to get this done? Is it tied to business priorities? Can you anticipate what matters and give them space to ask questions? So not just, I'm just really excited, let's go. Woo. It's, hey, I think this is not only a great way for me to build my own skills as part of my development plan that we've been working on, but it also supports our business priorities of streamlining operations. We can get things faster that we've been missing. And I'd really appreciate your support. But first, I really want to know, what are your questions, or what feedback or advice do you have for me? Involve that person so that they have some skin in the game as well. Okay. It's all part of the process. And we could do a whole workshop on communication, right? And this is just an idea. We're not going to spend time on it here, but just for your own purposes, you can go and work on this on your own with your handout. And I'd ask you, practice with a colleague, practice with somebody you met on this call, and let someone play devil's advocate and poke holes in your idea. I do this with groups to help them build out these skills, and it really is it gives you that better opportunity to build that buy-in. So now we're going to move on to what it looks like at an organizational level. So this is just for fun, and everybody come off mute when time comes, but we're going to take a little quick detour. You can have your hand raised, or you can just jump off and yell, but we're going to take a vote on which of these creatures would win in a race. Now note, because I've got a lot of deep thinkers and engineers and things in here, I'm being really vague on purpose. So let's go with your gut answer, no other context. Who's the winner in this group of creatures? Anybody, what do you think? Who votes for the gator?
Someone commented the hawk.
The hawk, yeah.
The gator.
Yeah, that gator's pretty powerful. I mean, he's like a dinosaur. He's been around forever, right? But then again, the tortoise has too. Okay, I know it's kind of a silly exercise, but the point is, guys, and I know it seems abstract, but there is a point. It really depends on the environment. And it does depend on the details, right? So
Right.
someone said yes, someone said eight. Your tortoise could win.
Turtle.
Depending on the company, depending on the person, right? You're all coming with different things, right? The gazelle is coming with speed and agility, right? And it's resilient. The tortoise, he can endure. He's been around forever. He's got long-term success in mind. Your hawk is visionary. He can fly above and see everything for miles and get a great view. And he's agile and adaptable, and he can just zoom around and excel in dynamic situations. When the wind comes up, he can swerve. And that alligator, holy cow, like he's so strong and he can be fast in short bursts, but then he gets really slow and he needs to go nap and get some sunlight to power up. None of these are wrong or better or worse than the other. They're all just different, just like all of us are. We all have unique strengths and weaknesses, and the organizations that we work in have their own unique strengths and weaknesses too, right? So it's really important to just keep that in mind as you're building out your plan. Don't fight against, you know, the organization. Find the way to build off those strengths and weaknesses, whether it's a gator or it's a tortoise. Okay. So when we think about how we can make this work, you're all thinking, yeah, sure, this sounds wonderful, Alyssa, but let's be serious, right? There's a lot of things that can get in the way. That can slow this down, you know, organizational problems, people working outside their job descriptions, it's madness, right? So let's just have a quick conversation. What are some of the barriers that you think could get in the way of this working? We already had some great ones from Peter. Anybody else have some ideas? Or you're all just positive. Oh, I got someone raising their hand who says they're Janique, but it's not Janique.
My name is Brandy.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi. One of my barriers, we kind of talked about it in the small group, is sometimes ambiguity as far as who's in charge of certain processes, and it just comes from us. We're small on a local level and national in the larger sense, and sometimes it gets muddy as far as who's in charge of making decisions. So that was a barrier.
That's a good one. And I see that in a lot of places. I'm guessing everyone here in the call can nod their head and say, yep, that decision-making authority, especially in federated or matrix business models, could get really tough. And
There's
it's
a couple in the chat. Sorry not to cut you off, but someone said typecasting me, and someone said barriers, funding. Someone said staying in your lane mentality, and they responded, yes, very frustrating, and I agree. And Peter said external resource versus internal employee.
Yeah. So that's stay in your lane mentality. Exactly. Like you're going to have to prove to people that this works, right? And that's why I say start small with little experiments, right? And if it's outside your lane, maybe, you know, there is additional communication you'll have to do depending on the culture. But I'm with you. That stay in your lane mentality doesn't work. I can send you all this research and data to support. You've got smart people capable of much more than just sticking inside this box and doing this checklist. And so, in fact, you're hurting your organization to do it. But that doesn't change the fact that it's a barrier, right? So when it comes to manager support, I mean, you're going to have to lead people, have behavior modeling from leadership. When it comes to status quo, maybe it's just like, we don't like to change. We like the way we do things here. You're going to have to give proof and data. You're going to have to tie it to company initiatives, tell a different story, come at it a little differently. Or, you know, job structures, right? That kind of, you do what's in your list. Find ways to pilot things. I know pilot's a fun buzzword, but I love it too. Just propose something as a test. Like, I'm not even going to say this is forever. Like, I kind of just want to test this out. And you could do it as a team, right? Another way you can get past some of these barriers if it's not just you. You could have a crafting team working on something. Find other people with influence or that ability to kind of overcome those organizational barriers to help you do it together. But we could spend a lot of time on barriers. The point is they do exist, right? And there is risk, and that's never going to change. There are always barriers. Think back to that life story piece, right? We all have things that got in the way, and you found ways to move past or move through or around. So use your people and leverage your people to help, but focus on the things you can control. So if your experiment idea is diving into a lot of things that are they're just outside of your control or seem too far away, change your focus and pick something else. Pick something that you know you can do. Like, I could change the way we prepare our agenda for this one meeting, right? You don't necessarily have to change the whole meeting culture yet, but you're going to prove it and demonstrate it one piece at a time. Okay. So I know we're running really short on time, but the reality is there's a lot of organizational benefits to doing this. There's data to support it. More purpose, engagement, and retention. You have accelerated career paths. Let's go back to that talent and skills problem. Organizations need people who can build these skill sets. And you need it for your own career longevity, right, and success. You're building, you're redeploying talent strategically and building a competitive advantage that sets you apart in the market. This is really tied to true financials within businesses. So how do you get started, right? First, you really need to understand, and now we're taking it at the organization level. How do I, in my organization, make this a process and a practice beyond just individual people? You need to have a clear vision, right? Understand those core principles and how they align. Understand that landscape, right? Are you a gator or a tortoise? Where are some of those barriers? List them out. Just know what they are so they don't surprise you along the way, and you can work around them. You're going to get really clear about what do we want to do as an organization. Are we trying to get people to stay longer? Are we trying to get people to adapt or grow new skill sets? What do we want to do here? And then start people talking. Again, there has to be dialogue. It can't just be top-down stuff. No one buys into that. You need to involve people in the process and facilitate dialogue to help make it happen and drive that meeting. And then just start small, learn fast. Say, hey, this isn't forever. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to try these couple things first. And then we're going to build off them. And we feel confident that as a group, we can do this and we can grow together. Now, the manager has a big role to play here. Your manager is that kind of gateway for you as an individual, but they're a big focus area on how this culture starts to emanate throughout the teams. They have to put the right practices and norms in place to make it possible to experiment without fear. And environments where you can't experiment without fear, there are going to be a few more barriers, but it's not impossible for those of you who work in those environments, because I'm sure some of you do. That manager, and if you are that manager, you can empower autonomy. And again, just try simple things. Assign cross-functional pairs or a one-day challenge. Let them try something a little unfamiliar. Trust them to push a little beyond their comfort zone. And then be there for them. Offer support and resources. Maybe you know where there's a training that they could go take. Maybe you can connect them to someone inside the company who could help them learn that skill. And the dialogue, it must be two-way. Back and forth, challenging appropriately, sharing ideas, and then recognizing and championing the behaviors that you want to see continued. If that doesn't happen, you're not giving people reason to continue going forward. There are some great theories and something called motivational interviewing, which starts in psychology, but it's just a collaborative, goal-oriented style. So you're going to ask open-ended questions, provide affirmations along the way. Yep, heard you. Ooh, sounds great. You're going to reflect back what you heard and summarize. But some things you could talk about if you were on the other side of that ask and that communication as the manager is, okay, well, what are the outcomes that matter most here? What are the smallest? Could we make this smaller? Could we go back to a different step? Like, what will you notice if it works? Right? So people won't have these asks perfectly up front. You can help coach and guide them there by asking the right questions, and you'll build it in yourself as well. From an organizational standpoint, there's some scaffolding that needs to go into place, right? We know that when employees have freedom to experiment and iterate and own their work, it unleashes massive innovation learning and benefit to the organization. But you have to have regular communication. You have to start to design for agility. And I know that's hard. I've worked in some industries where we do things a certain way and it's very waterfall. But starting to give people a little bit more ability to move more fluidly, rotate through projects, try different jobs and career paths internally, and have adaptive learning is the way to do it. You've got tools at your disposal. If you've got technology that's available, use it. You're paying for it. Find the way to make it support this process. And then make sure it really ties to a future need. Can it help you forecast workforce issues? Can it help you build practices that'll make you more market resilient, where you know a cliff is coming in your business? Those are the mechanical components, but then you're also building a new culture. Right? Using buy-in and storytelling to have social proof. Don't let a leader or just HR person like me tell people why they have to do this thing. Let them hear from their peers who've done it. That's social proof, right? Nudges from peers and people that you work alongside gives you a little bit more credibility, and it removes a little bit more of that fear. And you have to give people expectations. Maybe instead of saying, oh, hey, everybody who wants to do this, raise your hand and opt in. Just make it, everybody's going to try this. This is going to be how we're going to work. And it's more about opting out. Right? And that could be an option, right? You have to celebrate learning. That's hard. A lot of organizations aren't here, right? But you have to be a little bit more comfortable with simple risks and the big wins you get from taking some of those experiments. Making it easy, getting feedback constantly, right? You have to be constantly getting feedback. Don't make assumptions. We all do it to keep that momentum rolling and rolling and rolling. So we're going to skip over the other piece, to think about is you have to know what your objectives are, going back to that initial how you get started. But there are a lot of different ways that you can measure this. Some of them could be more qualitative, right? Engagement surveys, pulse surveys, but you could be assessing skills. You can be looking at your internal movement and your retention. From an organizational perspective, you can be watching workflows get faster. When you empower someone to just solve a problem instead of putting it in a queue, imagine how much faster you can overcome the barriers. You can get projects done quicker. You can innovate faster. Your customers may feel better and give you a higher NPS. Your business will grow faster. Your ROI will be bigger because you're wasting less time and duplicative work. So just be thinking about, measures within your company, right? As you build that case or as you're trying to implement that could work for you. But overall, the point is there's plenty of research and science to support that empowering people to craft, experiment, and take ownership is a catalyst for growth for both the individuals and their organizations. Okay? You can transform your work and your whole company's future by doing this. You just need a plan and some intentionality to do it. And don't forget the compounding idea. Every day you do a tiny little step forward, it compounds into significant exponential growth over time. But all those days that you do nothing or take a step backward, that compounds too, right? So just one little step can accumulate into really impactful things. So don't get flustered. Some days won't go your way. Just keep that momentum going. This is a craft and a practice, and it'll take time to get good at it. But careers don't have to be linear. There are many paths. All of you are smart, experienced, wonderful people who have great ideas. And I know you've seen someone do this well before, right? What worked for them may not work for you, but you have to chart your own path and just keep trying. So I'll just ask, give yourself a commitment. What's one thing you can stop doing today to make space for job crafting? That thing that you care about, or one thing that you can start doing. And then write a note to yourself, or maybe send yourself a delayed email to check in on that. If that doesn't work for you, find an accountability partner. Someone you met on this call or someone you work with who can keep you going, keep you motivated, and help keep you accountable to that big thing that you want to achieve. But just focus on something you can start doing for the next 30 days. Keep it small and see how it grows. Okay, so I know we're right up on time here. We had some good discussions. So before I go to any Q&A for anyone who's able to stay, I do just want to thank everyone for participating today. I hope it was valuable and you took one or two things away that can help you grow your career or change your company. And I also want to say thank you to the Omaha Chamber, Tommy and Dell, and Janique for their support in arranging and promoting this event. They have a whole series of virtual workshops with incredible speakers week over week. So I'm sure you'll get information about that in the follow-up. You'll also get a copy of the slides. So please, if you'd like to connect or give me some direct feedback, there's a link there as well. I'd love to see you on LinkedIn, but reach out and let me know how I can improve. So So that's really all I have. And I know some folks have to jump, but I do want to stay on in case there are questions, topics people want to talk about as we kind of close out today. Anybody have questions, comments?
No, I'll just say thank you for the, the lesson today. Pretty motivating, so appreciate the time.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, everybody, you'll get an email with a copy of all the slide decks of those things we just blew right through because we just had too much going on. You can read and follow up on it, or just reach out to me. I'm here for you. And in that slide deck, there's also some citations on some of the research if you really want to nerd out like I did on this. All right. Tommy, anything else you had for closing out today?
Nope, I just want to say thank you for everyone who joined Alyssa's session. And like she said, I will be sending out a follow-up email with everything, her slides, the worksheets, again, just in case you weren't able to access it. And we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Good luck. Go craft your
Thank you.
future.
Bye.
Change the world. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.